Okay, and a very good morning. Welcome to this week's Arcadem Podcast. This is episode 19. The theme we're talking about this morning is the Japanese gaming industry. As always, I have Philip with me this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks very much, mate, for joining us. So let's just dive straight in. So I just want you to talk to us a little bit about the sort of Japanese gaming culture as a whole.
Yeah, not a problem. I mean, it's podcast number 19 now, so it's kind of getting along quite well. But with Japan, it's quite interesting how they do things in terms of gambling, because it's not the standard gambling format anywhere else in the world. The Japanese culture, they do like to gamble. It's kind of ingrained in their culture as any culture in the world. You know, we all gamble. It's kind of thing. But in Japan, you have to look at how they operate in terms of the pachinko halls, because of course the Japanese come up with a genius way to get around rules, right?
Oh yeah,
they are geniuses, and also pachinko halls are some of the funniest ways to get around things, laws you've ever seen. If we look at Shinjuku in Japan, an area of Tokyo, you can see some pachinko halls there, and customers literally line the streets at 8 o'clock in the morning, wait there for an hour. Like, you got like 800 people sometimes in a queue waiting to go in these pachinko halls, and then they do a lottery system. So even if you're first in the queue, it doesn't really mean shit, because you get a lottery, because they've got a superstition, like if you get in, you can pick your own machine. And it's like, you get to pick.
So a bit of lucky machine.
So you can pick the lucky machine in the pachinko hall, which I think is hilarious, because let's face it, all gamblers are suspicious and superstitious.
Yeah, totally.
So I understand that, being a gambler myself. So I just found that this documentary I was watching, it was a day in the life of a casino worker, and it was just, I found that bit really funny, because as well, the casino workers, they were so helpful to the customers and so polite. They were even cleaning the street near the pachinko hall. And I was like, wow, it's just so clean and tidy, and everyone was so organized. I was like, wow, imagine if the UK or Malta or anything was like this.
I'd be like, wow, it'd be an absolute mess. I'd
be like carnage. But yeah, so they do the system, they get the lottery, and then they allow the first customers to go in, and then they can select anywhere they want to sit, and they play. And in these pachinko halls, it's just rows after rows after rows of machines. It's nuts. The noise in the place is crazy. Pachinko games themselves are pinball machines on steroids, as I like to call them. So just imagine a slot game met a pinball game, and you put all the music in the universe into it, and all the flashy lights and effects, and some are anime related, some are dragon related, all kind of themes as well. And it's just nuts. I design games for a living, and even I stare at these pachinko games going, what the fuck? And the way they work is the customer comes in, they buy these pinballs, and the pinballs are worth a set value. It could be 0.2 yen, or it could be 1 yen or 5 yen even, these specific balls. It just depends on each pachinko hall. And then what the player does is they go and put these balls in the machine, and then the more chances you hit into certain areas, or you trigger the jackpot features, the more balls you get. And that's what you want. You want more balls in the end. And if you watch this documentary, some people are winning so much that literally they get like a little cart next to the person, and they put all the balls in tubs, and they can lock them down so no one can touch the player's balls. And some guy must have had about 20,000 of them or something daft like that, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Wow. So is that like instead of money or coins or anything like that at all?
Because I'll get onto that in a minute, how that works. It's a genius Japanese way to get around rules.
Okay.
And then the player turns like these knobs on the screen, like dials and things, to kind of make things a bit harder to shoot, or like in the direction you want. It's really complicated to get your head around unless you play it. Even when I was looking at it, I was like, wow, I'd have to sit here and play this for a few hours. I'll probably go deaf as well. And as well, because players are really like protective of the machines they're on. So if the player wants to go for a break, or go to the toilet, or go to eat food, because they'll eat food indefinitely. They'll sit in all day, like 8 hours, and eat food indefinitely. And they'll lock the machine down and put like a sign that says, the player's away, or something daft like that. Anyway, so at the end, the casino workers are all going around, the pachinko hall workers being very nice to everyone, and it's really cool. And the customer service is like, it's not even 10 out of 10, it's like 100 out of 10. It's just crazy. And they help people who are not from Japan come and learn pachinko as well, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, that's very cool.
And the way they kind of cash these in, so if you got your 20,000 balls, so you go to this kiosk where one of the casino workers is working, and he basically totals up all your thing, and you get this like receipt, and you go to this kiosk stand, because in Japan you cannot gamble for money legally, land-based, right?
Okay.
So they can't give you money back in there, but what they do is, so you want X, Y, and Z balls, you exchange it for this token, you go outside the pachinko hall, you walk down the street, and there's a place, like a little stand or like a little kiosk, like a small shop, that will exchange this thing for monetary value, but it's a separate company from the pachinko hall. Okay. So you can make money gambling on it, but it's just kind of like you have to go out, go down the street, exchange this, and that's just a genius loophole. It's insane. I mean, pachinko's been a thing in Japan now since the 70s, but we'll go into that later on if we discuss kind of the gaming culture in Japan. But I just thought that was just such a genius way to get around rules that I don't even think the government cared, clearly, because if the government cared about it too much, they would close that down, that loophole.
Yeah,
right?
And you can literally just walk down the road and just exchange it straight away. That's crazy.
I just found it funny because I didn't realize that until I watched this documentary, and I was like, well, wow, that's just crazy. But I thought it was genius. I was like, wow, that's just big brain plays, as we like to call it.
Yeah. So where did it come about then? Because if you're saying it hasn't been around for forever, who came up with that idea and then the loophole, and why can't you sort of gamble for money potentially in Japan?
So the way it came around is, so after World War II, Japan was kind of in a slump right after the war, and pachinko halls, like gaming halls and things like that, were not a thing. But they started opening social spaces for people to work and have relaxing, as any country ever does. And then around the 50s and the 60s, pinball got introduced, because American troops were based there, and then pinball machines got introduced. And then it kind of just evolved from there, because then it became in the way where you can get multiple pinballs, and it kind of went with the direction the way Japanese gaming was going, because arcade machines were massive in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, right, in any country in the world. So Japan was the birthplace of most of these games that were coming out. So the pinball games had to compete with this, right? You've got Super Mario Bros. Or Donkey Kong or whatever on an arcade machine, and you're there with bloody pinball. You ain't going to compete, are you, with the newer generation? So they had to figure out how to use that potential of the gaming side and bring it in. Because when you look at these pachinko games now, they're very gamified. It's pretty much playing an arcade game, but it's like a gambling form. And it just kind of evolved from there, and the Japanese culture, they just responded really well to it. So all in all, it just was the right thing at the right time, and it just got traction. When anything's the perfect product at the right time, it will always gain traction and become ingrained into culture, right? Yeah, it's basically what happened here.
And is it anywhere else in the world? Because up until, I think you and I were speaking about this a couple of weeks ago, thinking of different topics and stuff, I'd never even heard of pachinko games, ever.
Yeah. So in other Asian countries you will see something like this, but it mainly is that side of the world, because European players and American players, there might be some pachinko games in America, but it's not really a European product. But again, it's the culture difference, because the Japanese culture was really suited to allow something like that, whereas Europe, we have a gaming culture, consoles and things like that, but it wasn't as crazy as it was in Japan at the time when it started booming off.
Right.
So that's probably why there's nothing crazy like that. And with gambling in Europe, it's mainly online now and in casinos as well. So we had that legalization already. So we were allowed to gamble, and we didn't need no loopholes or anything like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get you. So obviously, if this is so ingrained in Japanese culture and so on, how imagine it's been affected massively by COVID and all that sort of stuff.
Yes. So I mean, if you look at Sigma, some of the articles have been releasing recently regarding just Japan. They've been talking about the pachinko halls. Yeah. And I read an article the other day where it's 7.4% of pachinko parlours in Japan disappeared during the pandemic.
That's a lot.
Which, yeah, that is a massive percentage. And considering how big this is in Japan itself, it's quite a massive figure. But then unfortunately as well, with the wave 4 in Japan now, they've actually closed all the pachinko halls again. So it's kind of, they're just not getting any recovery. They come out, they're like, okay, we know some places have closed, and then now it's kind of like, okay, bang, here's another fourth wave, you close again. So, and it's a shame because a lot of people go to these pachinko halls to socialize, to kind of do their own thing, for 8 hours at a time, each to their own. Yeah. And they're losing that. It's quite a shame for them. But again, I think now is where online will start picking up a bit more. I don't think the pachinko halls will disappear at all of them, because again, very much ingrained into the culture, and it would take a long time for something like that, because Japan's a very social country. Yeah. People like to go and these pachinko halls, they like to go for a drink after work with the colleagues, and have food, and it's kind of in the culture to do that. So I don't think we'll see the difference in terms of how we have in Europe, where everyone's really moving online, but we will see a bit of that trend as with the current way it is now.
Yeah. So that being said then, right, and again, I'm just going to throw this at you. Has anybody ever attempted to create an online version of that game?
Yes. So there is some pachinko games online, but it's really hard to recreate the experience of a pachinko game online, because if you look at these machines when they sat in front of them, they're just nuts. That's the only way I can describe it. It moves, it lights up. Like, I've seen one where a person's head transforms into a dragon above you, like physically, like a transformer, and I'm just like, wow, it's so hard to replicate that online.
Man.
You can show it on like a video interface, but when you're sat there in a chair and the bloody machine is moving in front of you physically, you're like, okay, you have my attention. And then there's stuff, there's like jackpot games where you trigger it and a sword pops up and you have to push the sword down manually. Stuff like that. It's just so much interaction.
Epic, seriously, that's like proper epic stuff.
So people have attempted it, don't get me wrong. I mean, Arcadem, we're interested in potentially doing one, but again, I wouldn't want to do it just for the sake of it. I really would want to make a knockout product, and until we figure that out, I don't want to rush something like that, because I'd love to make a pachinko game. It's nuts. It's just Arcadem, right? It just shoots us down to the ground. Down to the, But until we can replicate that experience like it is in a pachinko hall, I would not want to do it. But yeah, people have tried. They've not gone down badly. Don't get me wrong, because Japanese players will play them, and other people in the world playing them that have not seen pachinko before. But you can't compare to the real thing at the moment, because the real thing is just nuts. It's just that's all I say.
That's gonna be my next Google search straight after this, mate. Seriously, my next Google search. Pachinko, boom, show me. Right. So moving on then, we briefly touched on in terms of like the loopholes of gambling and the fact that you can't gamble money. So just talk to us a little bit about those regulations and how different it is potentially then in Japan compared to everywhere else.
Mm-hmm. So Japan, land-based casinos don't exist. The documentary I watched was a day in the life of a casino worker in Japan, but that was just so people who are not from Japan can understand what this person is doing. Yeah. So there is no land-based casinos as we know it in Europe or America or anywhere like that at the moment. However, they are looking to regulate this and get gambling legalized in Japan. It was making quite a lot of progress, but then COVID came. So let's face it, when COVID comes, everything gets put on the back burner, right? Yeah,
everything gets killed. Yeah, totally.
But you can gamble online in Japan at the moment because it's available via an MGA license at the minute, because there's no regulation to stop it. Right. So a lot of casinos are starting to go live in Japan, and players in Japan, honestly, they are some of the best difficult players in the world, and they're only difficult because they read everything.
Okay.
So sometimes players will load a game up and not read anything at all. But in Japan, the really cool culture is they will literally go into a game or rules for promotion and read it line by line so you understand it, which at times is great. But other times, because stuff can get lost in translation, it can be a bit difficult for support, blah, blah, blah. But players like that are amazing because they'll just figure stuff out themselves, and it's great. And as well, it's really exciting because Japanese people in the culture, and people who live in Japan, not just Japanese people, foreigners who work and live there, they're always on the phone because they're always traveling on the trains and stuff like that. Have you ever seen some news stuff of people getting on trains in Japan in rush hour where they're literally pushing people into the train?
Literally shoving them in. Get in there. Get to work on time.
Yeah, it's like, come on, we'll kick you in this train. But if you look at that and the method they use to travel is they're always on like a mobile device, or they're always like gaming or something like that. So online casino will pick up really well in Japan just because of this aspect, because it's another form of gaming, right? When you think about it, it's entertainment within moderation, of course. Yeah. So I feel like slots and stuff, once it does get regulated even more and it becomes like normalized to gamble online there, I think there will be a massive spike in that market. I think it's going to be a really cool market as well because of the culture. I mean, we can do like manga style games, anime style games that appeal to that culture. And you can try new mechanics that that might just work there and not anywhere else. There's so much potential with that market just to make your product even cooler. and just to meet like another culture, it's always good, especially like Latin America, for example, where you see players playing the content from there at the moment. That's just really cool because it's a culture that you don't necessarily interact with on a regular basis. So when you do get a chance, even though it's through something like this, I think it's really cool because you learn stuff. I mean, I learned a lot about pachinko halls, and that was cool because that cool loophole where you just walk out the door and go down the street. So it just depends as well. The regulations, they're up in the air at the moment, especially with the Tokyo Olympics coming as well. They're really focused on that. So I reckon it's going to be latter part of this year, start of next year before we even talk about more of that stuff. But we all know it is getting regulated. It's just a matter of time.
So again, what you talked about was the player habits that, it's a very, very tech-based country in itself. Irrespective of any other country, you always, whenever you're watching any documentaries or the news, man, everyone's got a phone, everyone's doing something. So is that going to sort of help companies like Arcadem get into, marketplaces like Japan because they're so tech focused and we can sell them something really cool into it?
Well, for us, it's more that we pride ourselves on quality and giving that great graphics, giving that great music, giving those great mechanics, but also keeping the game size down enough so people can play on the move. So a market like Japan is great for us to look at, because if we can make a game that people can play on the move in Japan, then it's going to work in London, it's going to work in somewhere in the US, it's going to work in Malta, it's going to work in markets like that. So as long as we can do that, then I'm totally on board with that. With Japan as well, we can try new art styles that we've not done before. So Demon Academy that comes out in August is very much like kind of manga inspired kind of artwork. It will do well across the board in the rest of the world, but I think it's got really good potential in Japan because manga in Japan, that's the thing, right? I mean, I watch anime, so I can't say anything bad about it at all.
No, same.
So just to see that kind of art style come alive in one of our games is really cool, and I think Japanese customers will really like it because it's just a cool theme. And it challenges you more from a design perspective, right? Because you're like, oh, how can I make this game cool for these people to enjoy? These people in Japan to enjoy, or these people in the US, or whatever. And then when you think you've cracked this method, you're like, wow, this is great. I think these guys are going to really love this game.
I think it's going to be very cool.
Just a pride.
Yeah, totally. So just last question, and again, you briefly just touched on regarding in terms of the regulations with the Olympics. How do you think, with the Olympics coming, and obviously there's a massive a year delay or whatever because it was supposed to kick off last year, how's that going to affect the sort of gambling industry as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, if we step out from the gambling perspective at the minute, just for a second, I feel really bad for the Japan as a whole, because they were really excited to host the Olympics. It's a really big event. London had it. Back a few years ago. So I feel really bad from that aspect, because I think it would have been a very cool place to go to sort of look and watch the Olympics there, and go around Japan and see the culture. And a lot of people would have had a chance to do that. But unfortunately, with COVID, they're doing it behind closed doors this year. No people are allowed to travel to Japan. Hopefully, local people will be allowed to attend. Just give it a bit of crowd and atmosphere. But again, fourth wave is in Japan at the moment, so again, it might be behind closed doors. So just from a cultural and a humanity standpoint, it's very sad. It's such a big event. I feel really bad for them. But in terms of a gambling perspective, the Olympics is something people bet on all the time. It's a big event. It comes around every so often, and I think because the fact people can't travel this time, and see that people are going to be watching it a lot, and people are going to gamble on it more, because you can't go there. You're going to sit there watching it, and you're going to have a gamble. I don't gamble on the Olympics because Team GB is how to describe it? Okay, I guess. We're not super good, so it's kind of, you can't bet against your side, right? In terms of that, but you sat there, and you're watching the Australians motorway swimming. And you're like, why can't my guys be Australian?
Got to ignore those. Right, seriously, we're all the gymnasts now. We're all the gymnasts, man. We're going for those.
We're all the gymnasts, and then it's like, GB should have a football team, and you're like, that'd be great if England, Ireland, and Scotland and Wales could literally stop arguing for 5 minutes to put a team together. No worries. But let's face it should be just an England team then, because we've got the best team. I said it. England's got the better team. Euro 2020. But joking aside, I think it's going to be a really exciting time, because I think people are going to watch the Olympics more this time, because it's a bit of an escape, right? We've all been stuck in, and the Olympics is such a good event for people to come together on a global scale and, swearing aside, get rid of all the bullshit people normally do in the world, like arguing over dumb shit. Now people are getting together, doing an Olympic stuff, and people take pride in that. And I always think there's a solidarity about the Olympics. I just feel really bad for Japan at the fact that no one can come and see it personally. But again, I think it's positive for Japan. I think once this is done, the regulations will come back into a bit more of a focus, because rightly so, they are focusing on this because they have to make sure everything is safe with COVID around. Because COVID, can it just please fuck off?
Well, again, if you think you've got athletes from all over the world, descending on a country, they've got to make sure that it's absolutely rock solid, super safe for them, because
the amount of testing they're going to do,
and the reputation that they'll get hit with otherwise, if they start having some of the athletes and stuff getting sick, it'll just go through the floor.
I think the amount of testing the athletes are going to have to go through, like on a daily basis, is going to be insane. And I'm interested to see what the podium is going to look like, because normally the athletes are quite close together on the podium, right? Are they going to be like
massive podiums, mate? Massive.
Are they going to be like social distancing?
Yeah, social distance on the podium would be like, right, just give you a little elbow bump. Do you know what I mean?
I said it's really depressing, because all the normal things that you wouldn't even consider being a problem, like people being on a podium together or people being in a stadium together, it just goes out the window with the current situation we're in. And again, I feel really sorry for the people in Japan, because I was actually thinking of going to the Olympics when it was on, and I would have loved to go afterwards, go tour around Japan, because it's beautiful. The country is beautiful, and the culture seems amazing. I watch a lot of videos. There's a guy called Abroad in Japan, British guy that went over there to teach, and now he's like a YouTuber over there, and he goes around and does all the cultural stuff in Japan, and it's really good videos. Actually, it's really good content, and you get to see some of the beauty that a country has, and you're just like, wow, why can't I be here every day?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it'd be very cool. Very cool country. Very cool. Okay, all right, buddy. Well, listen, pleasure as always. Thanks for taking time out your busy schedule to sit down and have a chat with us.
No problem.
Looking forward to sort of getting this content, and again to our audience as well. We are planning a whole bunch of these now over the next couple of months. We're trying to get this content back to being some controversial. Yeah, we'll throw some curveballs at people, and again, it's going to be opinion based content, right?
Yes.
Because I think the opinion's valid out there right now. What's going on? So everybody look out for the new sort of content that we're coming out on a weekly basis, definitely for the next couple of months. So that's going to be cool.
And what's great about an opinion is, if anyone wants to prove me wrong, please do. Because if I'm wrong, I will fully admit I'm wrong.
Can't wait for that one.
All right. It's like
we'll put that on a t-shirt.
It's like Philip was wrong.
Philip was wrong. The end. This date.
No, but jokes aside, really excited for some of the stuff that's coming. Let's just say there's a lot of stuff going on in the industry at the moment that we're really excited to talk about, and some of it is going to be quite interesting. Controversial wise.
For definite. All right. Brilliant stuff. All right, mate. Well, thanks, Emil, as always. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll catch you soon, buddy. All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.